गुड मॉर्निंग सर.
व्हेरी गुड मॉर्निंग.
सर एक 2 मिनिटात मी सगळ्यांना लॉग इन करतो. लोक होत आहेत लॉग इन.
काहीच हरकत नाही.
चालेल चालेल. ओके थँक्यू सर.
लॉग इन झाले आता.
लॉग इन मी कोणाला ऍडमिट केलं नाही. गुड मॉर्निंग सर. हॅलो. गुड मॉर्निंग सर.
गुड मॉर्निंग सर. नमस्कार.
नमस्कार. हॅलो. गुड मॉर्निंग. गुड मॉर्निंग ऑल ऑफ यू.
Good morning.
Actually, today we have gathered here for our one-day national webinar on understanding of program outcome and program specific outcome and course outcome. Today we are having two special guests. We are having Dr. Sundar Manoharan sir, Director General, Pandit Dindayal Energy University, Gandhinagar. Welcome sir.
Hello.
Yes sir. Welcome sir.
Hello.
Hello sir. Hello. Yes sir.
Yes. Good morning, Ji. Good morning.
Good morning sir. Welcome sir.
Good morning. And just I would like to just check whether I can upload my PPT and see whether it is loading. Would you mind if you give me access? Yes. Before we start, I would. Okay.
Yes sir. First of all, I would like to thank our principal, Dr. Padula sir, for his introductory.
A very warm good morning and welcome to all of you on this auspicious day. Today we have a one-day national webinar based on understanding of program outcome, program specific outcome, and course outcome. I think these are the three crucial words today's educational system, which is known as an outcome-based education. I am Principal Dr. Shantaram Bhatguzar from Shahada Taluka Educational and Cooperative Education Society Limited. Well, Nandurbar is a tribal-dominated district and also recognized as one of the aspirational districts by Niti Aayog, Government of India. Our institution is established in 1952 by Dr. Vishram Kaka Patil, who is an agriculturist, completed his PhD from US in 1930 and has lived up to his name. Took over as a president and took it to a developed the campus from KG to PG campus nature. He worked as a farmer's friend and brought many reforms in the area. Sri Motilal Tatya Patil has received many awards to his credit. Few of them are as follows. Adivasi Seva Puraskar, which is given by Government of Maharashtra. Haryali Green Man as his for plantation and environment maintenance. Lokmat Icon Puraskar by former President Pratibha Patil. And then again, a very creditable award, that is Vanashri, as his crucial work contribution in the tree plantation in the region, that is Vanashri from Government of Maharashtra. Our institution has 4 primary schools, secondary schools 5, junior colleges 4. We have 3 higher education colleges, and the institution has near about 650 teaching and non-teaching staff, also catering 10,500 students from KG to PG. Senior Science College has UG and PG departments, specially caters in computer science, biotechnology, chemistry, and zoology. We have a highly qualified and committed staff of 40 and catering the needs of 600 students of the region. We have completed reaccreditation has maintained its academic quality in the region and catering effectively. I welcome you all once again.
Good morning, sir.
Thank you, sir. Now, I would like to introduce our chief guest, Dr. Sundar Manoran, sir. Actually, it's my great pleasure to introduce Honorable Chief Guest, Dr. S. Sundar Manoran, sir. He is Director General in Pandit Dindayal Indian University, Gandhinagar, Gujarat. Basically, he is a prominent educator, scientist, and administrator. He received his doctorate degree in 1991 from the Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore. He has about 30 years of experience in teaching and research in the area of material science and nanotechnology. He has more than 100 research publications to his credit, as well as he has 13 PhDs, 27 master project theses, and 2 MTech theses. He has 21 inventions as patent, which includes ICU cardiovascular strength, health kiosco, energy storage, additive manufacturing, etc. He is visiting professor at various international institutes. For his immense contribution, he was awarded Innovation Gold Medal by the Department of Science and Technology and Lockheed Martin, USA. He has earned the Global Indus Techno Innovator Award as well as innovation awards from intellectual ventures in the United States. Dr. Sundar Manoharan sir is a mentor, teacher, leader, and innovator who is well known. He is dedicated to the cause of scientific and technological study in order to benefit humanity. Many young researchers and teachers have found his engaging nature to be fantastic source of motivation. So, without any further delay, I would like to request our chief guest, Dr. S. Sundar Manoharan sir. Sir, please guide us with your immense knowledge and motivational thoughts. Please, sir.
Thank you, Ji. Can you please allow me to share my slides, please?
Yes, sir. Actually, there is option of present screen at your window.
Yeah, present your entire screen or a window.
Uh, Window.
But window, I am not able to see. One. That's not there. How do? No, it's there. It's already. Are you able to see the slide?
No, sir. Till not.
When I press present now, which one should I do?
One minute, sir.
Yeah, I got it here. Okay. Can you see now?
No, sir. Till we can't see your presentation. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Sure.
Yes, sir. Now we can. We are
How can
able
I
to.
see the people? Correct, ma'am. But I want to see people. Where do I see? Huh? There is okay. I cannot see any of you in this Google option.
Sir, actually, for that you have to change layout. There is more option.
Okay, no problem. No problem. No problem. Can you see my slide now?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We can see your slides.
Can you see my? Okay, great. Okay. Okay, thank you. Good morning, dear patrons, co-patrons of the Science College, Sharda, and Dr. Shantaram, Dr. Ullas. It's a pleasant experience for me to have come to your university, to your college for the NAC accreditation just a week before the lockdown happened. When I came to your place, I didn't realize that our whole country is going to face a big pandemic. But thank God we were all safe during the NAC visit. And today I am very pleased to again connect with all of you and also with the Jalgaon University, Maharashtra. And I hear a lot of people from other states in our country have also joined this Google webinar. Welcome to each and every one of you. I have to take 1 minute to tell of the good work that Shahada College and the Cooperative Society is extending to Nandurbar region. When I went as NAC chairman, I felt very, very happy that they are extending a very noble service, especially to the girl students. The girls were outnumbering the paying to provide quality education is a big challenge for people like us who are blessed with many amenities in metros, we may not take it seriously, but after seeing the STCS Science Senior College, my heart goes with you. In fact, this is one of the many seminars that we are going to give. Our university has agreed to give a series of lectures to the Science Senior College, at least 40 this year, and faculty members have expressed their happiness to give in various domains. So this may be an inaugural seminar as well, and the related university is also more than welcome to join in all the seminars that our faculty are going to give to Science Senior College, Shahada. Okay, now I know that you have many speakers, so I am going to be very cautious to finish by 11:30, and whatever slides I can run through, I will run, and then I will stop exactly at 11:30. So I ask you for your kind attention, and I want all of you to mute so that you can I don't get a background noise. Thank you for your attention. Today's topic, what the principal of Science Senior College requested was to talk on outcome-based education. Usually, this outcome-based education becomes very, very important only when accreditation team comes. And 1 year before, 6 months before, we suddenly start discovering that there is marked grade given for outcome-based education. And then we start changing our entire lifestyle for the sake of NAC or NB accreditation. But I'm glad Shahada is doing it soon after their second cycle. Now they have 4 years to really practice outcome-based education, which becomes very important, especially in criteria 1, 2, and 3, where much weightage is given for outcome-based education. This is mainly emphasized by both NAC and NBA because there is a growing problem in unemployment. Whenever technical companies, industries, they come for hiring, often they say that their soft skills are good, they are very well groomed, but their technical knowledge is not good. Their core competence is lacking, mainly because the way we teach and the way we evaluate and the way the students learn is very limited, and it's in a different direction. Now, just before doing that, let me refresh you where I'm sitting now and where I'm talking to you from. I'm from Pandit Deendayal Energy University. Recently, our Prime Minister changed the name of our university from Petroleum University to Energy University. On the left side, you are seeing nearly 30-40 acres of land where most of the academic buildings are there. You are more than welcome. I have told the principal or anybody from the university also to come here. We will give a very good inspection of all the facilities. On the right side, you see the students' hostel, one of the international students' hostel. We have 3 towers like that. Nearly 2,500 students can say. This tower, what you see on the left side, is mainly for international students. Nearly 300 people from 37 countries are staying here. And there is one building here. This is costing around 75 crores. And this is for extraordinary facility from Maruti Suzuki on automobiles. And this is one part. And our university is the first university in the country to establish a 1 megawatt solar farm integrated to grid. And that is what you are seeing here. This is a solar farm. We are supplying power to our respected government of Gujarat, and they are also paying us for the electricity that we are generating through the solar farm. And this Maruti Suzuki stuff is what you see on the backdrop here. And this tower that you see here is also in the backdrop. So this, you are seeing only half of the campus, but I just wanted to know where I am calling from, and you are most welcome to come to our university for any help. Now, in the outcome-based education, what is very core to what I'm going to talk is what we teach and what the student is understanding. is what we call it as course outcome. We are all teaching at least 2 subjects a semester or 3 subjects. Now the point is, at the end of 45 lectures or so, what my student is understanding from course outcomes of respective subject really determines whether the BA, BSc, BCom, BBA or MBA program or BTech in engineering, whether that program of that branch is successful or not is determined by the course outcomes coming from all these courses that we teach. How much the student has understood. Now, if the program is successful, then the program educational objective becomes successful, which is actually coming from the vision and mission. Sharda College has a vision because the cooperative society has had a vision to empower people in that area. Nearly 95% of the people are first time graduates in this science college. That is what was very warming feeling for me, that I am seeing students, mostly 95%, they are all first generation graduates, which means their parents, grandparents, nobody has come to college level. So that is the vision. The vision is outlined by 3 or 4 missions or program education outcomes, and that is dissipated by the program outcomes, which is again intertwined with all the courses that we offer. Now, this program outcomes essentially means what is that we are imbibing on the graduate. When 4 years down the line or 3 years down the line, what you want to see your student like, that is what we call it as attributes. And based on that, we go down from the vision all the way to mapping the design. Now, there are some positive things which we need to understand in order to remove the negative things that are in practice today. Technically, the faculty should be very clear about this. What we should not encourage, curriculum, same curriculum passed from previous generation to next generation. Repeat the same subject, same syllabus, and in fact, same notes also. I don't bother about what I am teaching, but every year adopt 2 courses and keep on repeating without making any revision. That is bad. Rather, curriculum is planned and decided according to the need of today's students. Teachers are focused on helping students develop new skills rather than teachers trying to start and finish by the end session, because we have other compulsions also. The other thing is, students' knowledge assessment is done on the levels that track their learning skills rather than just merely getting a grade at the end of the semester. Therefore, we need to have a careful planning and design, and our teaching has to change. I again want to repeat, our teaching has to change. And once you go through the outcome-based education methodology, you will understand our teaching is stereotype and we have not switched gear to a faster mode. And then based on that will come the final outcome assessment. So the learning experience is basically intertwined by intended learning outcome and then the learning activities, and finally that will be integrated to the assessment. All 3 go together and they form a perfect triangle, and that makes the learning experience. And then the core to the learning here is all about the outcomes and assessment task and teaching that we do. Now, slide is not showing. Why? Huh? But they are not seeing. That's the problem. So, can you see? No.
Yes, sir, it is visible.
So you didn't see the slide moving. Just one. Can you see the
Yes, sir,
slide
it is
now?
visible, no problem.
Which one? Which one you are reading?
First one. No, whole
See,
all slides in one.
No.
All slides are in
You have to go for
No,
slide
are you
show.
ready?
You have not yet started the slideshow.
Stop.
The bottom right hand corner. Slideshow option.
F5. Come here, madam. Come here and do this. F5.
Yes, sir. Yes, slideshow is open, sir. Huh. Huh, sir, slideshow, yes, sir.
No, I will. Okay, I am stop sharing. Where is it? Presenter mode.
अभी आपको दिख रहा है?
You have to share mode.
Where is Zoom? Where is Google now?
Yes.
Google. Okay, again go back. No, it's here. No, again because I stopped sharing. Where? This one. This one is open.
Then
Presenter.
presenter.
Where is it? Here? This one. Okay.
Now
Yeah.
alter tab. Now
One second.
Okay. Now you can go here. This one. Yeah. I share.
अभी आपको दिख रहा है? Outcome based education. कौन सा slide देख रहे हैं सर?
now it's okay,
Outcome
sir.
based education.
Yes, yes.
Sir, wait a minute, sir. Wait a minute. Now, do you see the picture of my campus?
Yeah. Yes, sir. Visible.
Okay. Now only you're seeing the slide?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, Ji. Thank you. See, because I ran through at least 5 slides now. Thank you. Okay, this is the problem I have with Google because we are used to Zoom and WebEx. Okay, thank you. Now, this is the campus picture that I showed. And now, can you see the key constituents of outcome-based education?
Yes. No problem.
Okay, great. Okay, now this is where I told about the outcome-based education. The principal thing is about the PEOs, and then that is taking us to the program outcomes. And program outcomes are built on the courses that we are teaching. Now, this is what I told about the 3 things that we should be careful to add, and the 3 things we should not worry now and delete it from our practice. The negative point is about using the same curriculum, but we need to update our curriculum. That is the basis for outcome-based education. We should not rush through the syllabus to do, but rather impart new skills based on what we are teaching. And we need to categorize the level of learning rather than simply assessing and giving some mark. So this is why the intended learning outcomes becomes important, and the activities that we resort to is important before we go for assessment. Okay. Now, can you see the slide on graduate attributes?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes. Okay. Now, when we think about outcome of a person, of a student, these are the 12 graduate attributes that we need to impart, and it takes nearly 3 to 4 years to systematically teach them through the course, through the experiential learning, through the practical involvement in learning, and also they learn a lot out of the classroom also, through flipped classrooms and through student activities. And at the end of the day, when we talk about program outcomes, it all means these 12 graduate attributes, whether they are there. Instead of engineering knowledge, if you're a science college, you can talk about mathematical knowledge or chemistry knowledge or science knowledge. And then how do they analyze problems? How do they design and develop solution? How do they investigate a complex problem? Now, COVID came. What is the solution you or your students or your institution brought during COVID? If you ask me the same question, We brought a ventilator during the COVID time. It is indigenously made, and we started from the scratch without borrowing any technology from outside. We made this today in Gujarat. Nearly 35 ventilators are supplied to different hospitals. Rajasthan government has asked for 100, and so far we have provided 100 and odd ventilators, which we designed and manufactured with the industry's investment. This is what we call it as investigation of complex problem. And then how much of modern tool usage we have incorporated. The engineer or scientist or human studying student, how he is relating to society. All these are the graduate attributes. This is what we are going to do. Now, I don't know how many of you have heard of this word, Bloom's taxonomy. I'm sure you must have, but in case you are not familiar with Bloom's taxonomy, first of all, you need to understand, most of the time we teach and we evaluate them only in the first 3 levels, not in the all 6 levels. That means we stimulate their understanding only to remember certain things, understand certain things, and maybe 10 to 20% we ask them to apply. But we don't take them to the regime of analyzing whether the student can distinguish between different parts, whether the student can justify and take a decision, or whether a student can create a new product or point of view or a new hypothesis. Now, if we concentrate on the top 3, then the very teaching philosophy also will change. Because if we are going to teach only the fundamentals and make them remember, mug up, and even just vomit out whatever we have dictated as our notes, we are actually playing only in the 3. Now, this is not what we call as outcome-based education. We have to take them to level 4, 5, and 6. Then only the graduate attribute is attained. And this pyramid of the triangle tells that this is the way we have to build up our teaching practice, taking them from basics of remembering, conceptual understanding, ideas, to use of information to answer questions or solve problems. This is where we are limiting. Now, if we are doing only the first 3, the bottom 3, that means we are improving them only in the factual knowledge, in the conceptual knowledge, and probably little bit in the procedural knowledge. But when it comes to metacognitive knowledge of evaluating, reasoning out, or justifying a position or a predicament, disaster management, how to rationalize or to create a new situation for the existing pandemic or for any problem, that is a classic outcome that we should aim for. In fact, as parents, we want our children to be like this, in this quadrant. But when it comes to our students, we concentrate most of the time only on factual knowledge and conceptual knowledge, and very little on procedural. And often we say our students are not too smart. But the point is, if we take them through a very rigorous exposure to the evaluation and creating, then they will really catch up with our teaching methodology. Are you able to see this triangle and that circle that I'm showing, sir?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. No problem. Yes.
Yes, thank you. Okay, now to create this, these are basic definitions. When we talk about, remember, if you can recall your question paper which you are giving these days, mostly it is about definition, especially about security. For example, we put simple definitions like access control, and in the terms of understanding why, or if you make your question paper little rigorous, you say use the appropriate application to change your password to financial subsystem. Maybe you twist it a little bit, but I want you to concentrate on the questions that you can ask like this. Which of the following security incidents involve stolen passwords and more likely in our company? That means you have to analyze. That means you have to think. If you give this question, in most of the colleges, people will not answer immediately because they are not practiced to analyze. The second thing is about evaluating. Give a critical situation, 2 passwords, and tell which one you would recommend. It's a critical review or a design. Write a new policy to prevent users from putting sensitive information on mobile device. That is a new design that you're calling for. Now, what I'm trying to tell is, if you give only 30-40% or even 60% weightage for remember, understand, and apply, then minimum 40% of our questions has to be in this domain, which means I have to change my teaching also to, in order to qualify to ask the students such difficult questions. So the tone of my lecture will have to change. Now, this is the steps for Bloom's taxonomy to increase the level of your teaching, as well as to set a question paper that will increase the quality. These are some of the verbs you can use for each of the criteria or each of the level. For example, create, design, construct, develop, produce, or propose, build, devise. You can start the question like that, then the student will know that you are asking a tougher question, a question that involves creating something. If you ask a question like judge, justify, critic, defend, or evaluate, assess, that means you are putting the guy more in the reasoning than in testing only the understanding part of his subject. So I want first of all to see that in our colleges that we start practicing level 4, 5, and 6 in terms of our question paper, and eventually that means our old records, our old teaching material is not valid. You have to adopt different techniques. Now, this is the OB, outcome-based education framework. Already it is, I think I have another 5 minutes only, but I think I'll try my best to take you through. So you get feedback from all the stakeholders in order to define your program outcomes, and your course outcomes are usually planned within the board of studies, where you revise systematically with the feedback, the syllabus, the teaching method, the learning activities, and the assessment task. So I want you, first of all, to do the correction. In fact, in PDU, most of the faculty members are from IIT, but they have done nearly 1250 subjects have been revised based on the learning outcomes, especially with respect to Industry 4.0. So whether it is university or a local college, the course planning and delivery has to change in a big way. Only then you can affect the program outcome, and then you can achieve the program educational objectives which the trust or your management is pursuing. Now, this is the way you can map whether your program learning outcome is collaborating with the PEOs, program educational outcome, which is coming from the vision and mission. So you can make a matrix like this and see which of the graduate attributes or the program learning outcomes, which is 1 to 12, POs we call it, or PLOs 1 to 12, whether it is matching with your POs. It all need not match everything, but some may be selective. So you need to do a soul searching there. And I will take you through some of the key components. So for the program educational objective, you need to have a clear-minded vision as to what as an institution you want to do. And then the POs will give you the lead for your program outcomes. And then program outcomes are to visualize what your graduate has to become. And based on that, for each department, you have to specify your program specific outcomes other than the POs that we are talking. So put together the 12 POs and program specific outcomes, nearly 3, will together constitute how you should design your curriculum. And therefore, Based on that comes your course outcome, which is nothing but your individual courses that you are teaching, whether it is theory or practical. And in each course, you need to specify the course outcome. Now, I want to make it very easy for you. You can do this assessment of the course outcome through many ways, through direct surveys and indirect survey. This is coming as a 80-20 ratio, student assessment, midsum mark, endsum marks, and internal assessment mark. By this way, I can evaluate what is my course outcome, and through indirect survey, 20% weightage is there. I can understand how the course outcome is. Now, I can also easily program. I told you about the POs, which are 1 to 12, that I can try to map with the assessment tools that I am using and try to map which are correlating. This is the way I can map whether my course outcome is blending, it is achieving the program outcome. For that, need not be ticked. There are something selected. Through test, I might be able to evaluate only the 4 technical part of the brilliance. Assignments can take care of many things. Lab seminars can take care of ethics, relating to society, relating to modern usage of tools, everything. And then the course survey, exit survey, and other things actually take care of all mapping all the program. Extend more. My time is coming short. I want to show how we revise the syllabus at PDU. This is a course mapping for one of the courses called Mathematics 3 paper. And there are course objectives to understand concept of Fourier series and transform. This is more about transforms. But here we have 4 units, but course objective is not course outcome. Course outcome is different from course objective. Therefore, you have to write course objective, course outcomes, what you want them to see at the end of testing them through internal assessment, midsem, and through skill-based assessment and end semester. What you want to understand about the students' skill based on these assessment parameters. This is not the same as objectives. That's what I want to say. Similarly, for petroleum exploration, for example, this is a practical course. There are list of 11 experiments, and for these experiments I have listed out some 6 course outcomes which should be concentrated, and I should be able to achieve all the 6 course outcome from list of experiments 1 to 12. So this is the way we need to change the syllabus, not telling about objective but talking about this one. And once you have your course outcomes, every question that you are asking in your mid-semester, end semester, you have to map your course. For question A, whether I ask this question related to course outcome 1 or course outcome 2 or course outcome 3. Now, this one, I will give you a sample question paper from PDPU, where this is a typical question paper for our end semester examination, which we conducted recently for 40 marks because of COVID. Otherwise, it's 100 marks. Now, if first question is on draw an oil and gas value chain, which is carrying 5 marks, you see the next column, I'm saying this is related to the course outcome 4. The question paper 1 is related to course outcome 4, and it is having a Bloom's taxonomy level 4. This is a hint for the student that this is not a direct mug up and tell question. It's not understanding question, it's more of analyzing question. Similarly here, you see justify. this is a higher level of thinking. So I have put Bloom's taxonomy level 5. And similarly, I can mention 6 if I say construct a matrix, construct a table to explain the trend. Then that means it's creating. So I can slowly orient my student to start thinking on a different level rather than simply mugging up and coming and doing the first 3 level of Bloom's taxonomy level questions. So the onus, the responsibility is on both the student to realign his learning mechanism, and the onus is more on the teacher, because the way you teach, you have to teach in order to test the student in BTL level, Bloom taxonomy level 4 to 6. So typically, this is the examination paper that you will go for. And once you are successful in the teaching and assessment of your CO, then you can correlate that to your POs. I will just show the matrix. This is the way my course attainment is mapped against every PO. And suppose I have one course, 2041. If there are 4 outcomes, then I have I can how the 4 course outcomes are mapped against PO1, and then I can take an average. This is how I correlate between COs and POs, and once that is done, then I can understand how much of attainment of through the direct assessment and how much I am attaining through the indirect assessment, and then I can give a weightage for that. So typically, if I have a student class size of 6 students, I can clearly tell whether how many students have attained full understanding. Attainment level 3 means they have understood very well, and how the course outcome 1 is understood by the 6 students at this level 3, 2, 1. Similarly for course outcome 2 and course outcome 5, course outcome 6. So this is the way I map it, and then my attainment target should be based on the previous results of 3 to 4 years. Not only if the present batch, the passed out batch. That's why in NBA, if I have started a course, I wait for at least 7 years before I go for accreditation, because I need to know the progression of the students who have passed out, and there should be at least 3 batches. Now for that, the attainment level can be defined based on whatever you want. Level 1, level 2, level 3, you can start with 60% of students score more than 60 level, then you can say that is level 1, 70% above 60%, 80% above students above 60 marks, you can call it as attainment level 3, which is the maximum. So based on this, you can tell whether your course has achieved its intention. And from there, based on all the courses, I can say whether the program outcome is mapped. This is the way we try to ascertain for attainment of POs. And I think I don't have much time. Based on the exit survey also, I can try to bring it. Therefore, it is possible for me to bring some clarity into how the entire teaching process goes and whether it is affecting the understanding and the overall take home of the student. Mind you, if you change, it is good that we are meeting in a time when we have some lockdown time, and also between 2 semesters and 2 academic years, we are meeting like this. Some of the courses I would have repeated 3-4 times, but I can clearly tell you none of the 4 times when I repeated a particular subject, I have taken the same class notes. It is very boring for me. I have to change my class notes. And every time I change, I will try to go to the literature now and see whether I can introduce the most common thing. For example, material science, if I'm teaching nanotechnology, I usually go with this mobile and open the mobile and first show the screen, and then the battery, and then the circuit, and then the chip. Everything I tell, I will cover almost electrical engineering, mechanical engineering, and I will tell about physics of it, chemistry of it, Everything I will tell just with one. And that will be the catch point for the student, either to stay in my course or he will drop. The first day you give a boring lecture and say, I will be very strict, I will throw you out, the fellow will run away. But if you explain the course outcome, how you want to build the course for the next 40 lectures, the guys will come full attendance. You don't have to take attendance also. And your student at the end of the day will walk with a lot of confidence. Even after 20 years, he will say, sir, some of the lectures I won't even forget. Even now, some of the IT students keep telling, sir, that one you told, I don't forget, because we use different modern tools to enrich our. Please, my young colleagues who are present here, I don't know how many young colleagues are here. Never use PPT. Never use PPT. Try your best to write. Because PPT is very, very, because we keep rotating the same. And I have more questions. I think some other day we can do at a leisure, but I don't want to take time now. Thank you so much for your attention.
Yes, sir. Very true, sir. Thank you so much, respected Dr. S. Sundar Manoharan, sir, from DG Pandit Deen Dayal Energy University, Gandhinagar. Sir has explained us to what kind of attribute graduate must now in a competitive environment nowadays. Sir has told and explained the very in short and simple and sober manner with the help of Bloom's technology from level 1 to level 6, with throughout the simple activities with that a password kind of things, and what kind of teaching learning process we teacher must have to develop the student's career. We need to practice it in flipped classroom. We need to practice the question answer, factual knowledge delivery, practicals, metacognitive knowledge, or we must know exactly about the objective and outcome. Sir has told us or explained us in a very short. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. All the best. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Then, in this webinar, we must call our next delegates, Mr. Srihari Pingade, sir, which is a zoologist, soft skill trainer, assessment and accreditation mentor. Sir has working in as an assistant professor and coordinator of IQSC Sangamner Nagar Palika's Arts, DJ Malpani Commerce and PN Sarada Science College, Autonomous Sangamner, this Ahmednagar. Sir has one of the founder member of IQSC cluster in India. In short career of his, he has already served as an IQSC coordinator of his college for 10 years, as a vice principal for 2 years, is a member of governing council of his college under autonomous status. Sir has tenure as an IQSC coordinator. His college was re-accredited with a grade A+ grade. It is amazing. A CGPA of 3.58 by the NAC in a third cycle. Sir has completed his post-graduation from the Nagpur University, stood in first rank with merit with CSIR, JRF, SRF, and sir has played a very instrumental role in getting star status for his college under the DBT Star College scheme. So, in a short introduction, not get a much amount of time, I would like to invite or welcome to Dr. Mr. Srihari Pingade, sir. Welcome in our webinar. Sir Pingade, sir, please start.
Thank you. Irfan sir, am I allowed to share the screen now? Because already you are sharing, so I would
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
take it up.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Thank you. Can you all see my screen and am I audible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Thank you very much, sir, for kind introduction. At the outset, let me thank the chief guest for today's national webinar, Dr. Manoharan, for sharing his valuable thoughts. It is kind of challenging for me after, Dr. Manoharan sir talking in around 30 minutes, talking about the program outcomes and their attainment course outcomes, how to draft them. and then I kind of throwing light on them will be kind of injustice, because having a person of this much experience and I talking after him, it sounds little difficult for me. But nevertheless, I'll take up this challenge. At the outset, let me thank Principal Dr. S.P. Badkar sir, Convener Dr. Ullas Sonawane sir for inviting me, President Dr. B.P. Pawar, Pro-Vice Chancellor from Jalgaon University, Dean Faculty of Science Dr. R.S. Patil, Director of ST Cooperative Education Society Honorable Abhijit Data Patil sir, and all dear participants. We are here to discuss, the understanding of course outcomes and the program outcomes, with little on, program specific outcome as well. Why I say little is that I'll be discussing ahead during my talk. And as we go ahead, we'll see why this has become so much of buzzword these days. Everybody is so much concerned about the outcomes. Earlier, in the earlier methodology of NAC, you saw that there was, I guess, one question in criterion 2, it was 2.6, I guess, where NAC would ask about graduate attributes. Now, whenever NAC addresses certain question in the quality manual of SSR, asking it about colleges, people certainly they start rushing towards those questions, but they hardly are aware of what is the basic philosophy behind that. And beautifully, Dr. Manoharan sir has illustrated all that. What is the reason behind why we are rushing towards that? Now, unfortunately, me and Principal Badgujar sir, we have been constantly in touch, and Dr. Ullas Sonawane, we have been talking. Unfortunately, what has happened is, we as a fraternity, I mean the teachers, we are kind of people who have not been exactly trained about our jobs. Qualifying an examination such as NET or SET, or maybe having a degrees, for example, a PhD, does not essentially tells you or trains you how to teach in a classroom, and what is the philosophy of teaching, what is the science of teaching, what is the art of teaching per se. That is usually taught somewhere in those degree programs called as B.Ed or M.Ed. That has not something that has happened with most of us, and that is why when Pingle goes into the class, he teaches the way he wants. Or say, for example, Dr. Sonawane, when he goes to class, he teaches the way he wants. And there is not a particular pattern of teaching that everyone is following. And we tend to forget that there are two more things which follow the teaching process, and that is learning and evaluation. We only talk in terms of teaching, teaching, teaching. What are you doing? We are teaching. What are you doing? We are teaching. What are you doing? We are teaching. But we fail to realize the importance of learning, which Dr. Manoharan was trying to highlight all through his talk. Learning, what is that which a student is getting from it? And then the onus lies on the evaluation, not only evaluation, but the evaluation methods that you might be using to see whether the learning that was expected to happen is happening or not. And there comes into the play the program outcomes, the course outcomes, program specific outcomes, and secondly, their attainment. So suddenly this buzz about program outcomes is because of these two questions that I have cited here. Question number 1, 2.6.1, which is a qualitative one in the quality manual of NAC, is teachers and students are aware of the stated program and course outcomes of the programs offered by the institution. My dear friends, it is a sorry state of picture that most of the times, forget the program outcomes and the course outcomes, many a times the teachers are not aware of all the programs which are offered in the institution itself. Sorry state, even the students are not aware of what are the courses and what are the programs offered in the institution. Forget the program outcomes and the course outcomes itself. So this is one thing, whether we have clearly drafted program outcomes, whether we have clearly drafted course outcomes in the hand. Now this is something that universities should look into. Their board of studies should look into and have nicely drafted set of program outcomes, program specific outcomes, and course outcomes. Nevertheless, if they are ignorant enough not to frame these outcomes, and now recently we see that some universities have indulged into this practice just because NAC is asking this question, we can draft our course outcomes and program outcomes or program specific outcomes. That will give you an idea, that will give you a pathway, the direction in which you have to move as far as this whole exercise of teaching, learning, and evaluation is concerned. So this was one thing. Before we go into the next question that NAC has asked, we'll simply try to go through the definition of what are the program outcomes, program specific outcomes, and course outcomes. As you go in more details, no, it becomes more specific, domain specific, I would say. Program outcome is, less concise definition of the outcomes, restricting itself to the programs alone. Say, for example, the program BA is a program, BCom is a program. Why I keep talking about BSc, BA, and BCom is that most colleges are conventional colleges. And all the story of program outcomes or course outcome is started from, as Dr. Manoharan sir was mentioning, it all started from AICTE and NBA. So initially, it was all very well versed with the engineering colleges. And conventional colleges found it little difficult to incorporate it into their system of working. So program outcomes basically the outcome of your conventional degree program. Say, what are the outcomes of BSc? What are the outcomes of a BA program? What are the outcomes of a BCom program, for that matter? So what knowledge, skills, or attitude a graduate should have at the time of graduation? If I say become BSc, what are those things which I have end up getting from this program after being BSc? That is program outcome. So I will have a set of program outcomes. How you can write them, we'll discuss it later. Then you have program specific outcome. So in Pune University, I do not know about NMU, but in Pune University, you have a system where you go on leaving one subject and become specialized in one subject by the time you reach the third year level of BSc. So in BSc first year, I start with 4 subjects. In BSc second year, I give up one subject and study only 3 subjects. But in BSc third year, that is the final year of BSc, I become specialized in one subject alone. Say, for example, zoology in my case. Right? So BSc zoology, the outcomes of this are called as program specific outcomes. What if a student does BSc zoology? What are the skills that student is expected to develop when it completes BSc in zoology? That is called as program specific outcome. So we'll be talking in specific to a particular discipline now. Then you talk about course outcomes. So for example, if a student has taken zoology as his principal subject at BSc, he will have certain papers, he will have certain subjects from BSc. Say for example, taxonomy, say for example, cell biology, biochemistry, biotechnology, and whatnot. So for cell biology, he will again have certain set of outcomes which a student is expected to learn, imbibe. Those are called as course outcomes. So repeating it again, program outcomes possibly for a degree program for BSc, BCom, BA. Program specific outcome possibly for a specialization, for example, BSc in zoology, and course outcome for a particular paper. This is a very basic thing that one should have very clear in their mind so that they can go ahead with this exercise. Second thing is another question that NAC talks about. You just don't finish your job once you have drafted your program outcomes or the course outcomes. The job is not over. You have simply drafted the, found out the direction in which you are going to move. But whether you have achieved it or not is another story. A altogether completely different story. Having a plan is good, no? But whether you have achieved that plan or attained that plan is something else. So this is a kind of plan. Having a program outcome or having course outcome is a plan. But whether you have achieved this plan is a different story, and what we call it as attainment of program outcomes and course outcomes. This usually college people or people who are teaching in college, they will find it difficult because it is an exercise. You have to monitor this process time and time again. And people at colleges, they are, generally they shy away from doing this kind of paperwork all the time. But you have to do it. If you really want to do justice with higher education, with the teaching, learning, and evaluation process, then you have to go through this exercise. I was delivering a talk few days back at Yashwantrao Chauhan College of Yashwantrao Chauhan Institute of Science, Satara, and somebody asked me, "Sir, is there any shortcut to this exercise?" Answer was very simple. There is no shortcut to this exercise. You should not have any shortcut to this exercise, because if you have shortcut, then you will have probably outcomes which are misleading. Outcomes as in the result which are misleading. So do you want misleading results? Of course, the answer is no. And if you do not want misleading results, you have to go through this exercise very, very vigilantly, very, very carefully, very, very meticulously. I'll skip few slides because Dr. Manoharan sir has already addressed these things. And the first was, of course, the outcome-based education. I will only tell why, because I have little time. I will only say why this outcome-based education has come into limelight now. Outcome-based education, then you have LOCF, Learning Outcome-Based Curriculum Framework. Why this has come into limelight? Because, you know, earlier, the teaching that we saw, even now I was talking somewhere, I guess I was talking about one of the workshop that I'll be having at Karmavir Bhavrao Patil College, Vashi. And they mentioned that CBCS that we have, choice-based credit system, is just a good name that we are having. Choice-based credit system. There is no choice. It is just accumulation of course credit. 2 credits from here, 2 credits from there, 4 credits from there. And students, they end up being postgraduates with outstanding grades, 9.8 CGP out of 10. What is going on? And when these students, they graduate and go into the market for employment, they're hardly able to do justice to the subject, to the theoretical knowledge, or to the practical skills they must be having. This is because the system we had till now probably is just about accumulation of course credit, appearing in the examination, going through the examination, passing them. Now, when we talk about outcome-based education, we are talking about restructuring of the curriculum, as rightly been mentioned by Professor Manoharan. Assessment and reporting practices, you have to align your assessment methods in tune with the curriculum that you have designed, and the outcomes are coming into play. Achievement of the higher order learning and the mastery that you should be having on your subject. So when these things come together, you have something called as outcome-based education. Your student, he should not be, excellent on his mark list alone. He should be excellent when he is going at his place of work. So earlier, education was seen as transmission of expert knowledge. Now, I am a zoologist, master of science with zoology. So I should be able to talk zoology. I have got something in zoology. But now it is not about having knowledge of zoology. It is about, education to be seen as building learner competencies. I should be able to do zoology rather than know zoology. I should be able to do commerce rather than knowing commerce. So whether my commerce students, they're able to write a draft, a checkbook, whether my students are able to, file income tax return, whether my students are able to, say, for example, do proofreading if he is from linguistics, from English, can they do translations? Can they write a paragraph, nicely draft letter in English, in whatever language they are learning? Can they write and speak in Sanskrit if they are in MA in Sanskrit? So that has hardly been happening, because we were not into this system called as outcome-based education. So learning to learn, that is something which is very important, and it goes on till your life. With changing times, you have to keep learning, and that is very important. So just like, we are learning Google Meet, we are learning Zoom, we are learning WebEx, and so many other things. You have to keep learning all the time. And that should happen with your discipline also. So the focus now is on understanding the fundamentals, learning new skills and competencies, and of course, one more thing is going global. You cannot just restrict yourself to Shahada. You cannot restrict yourself to Sangamner. You cannot restrict yourself to Gujarat or Tamil Nadu. I've been told that there are participants from Tamil Nadu, Andhra Pradesh, Uttar Pradesh, and all the parts of India. Congratulations to the organizers for this. But then there are requirements which differ globally, and therefore you have to ensure that you have skills and competencies which can help you go global. So the shift is to at these levels. as far as outcome-based education is concerned. Now, going ahead, this already Dr. Manoharan sir has talked about. So I will give little emphasis on one thing. Somebody would ask me as to, sir, where should I start from? You know, having program outcomes, program specific outcome, course outcome. Where do I start from? So you should be starting from the vision and mission of your institution. And many a times most institutions, they fail in this because they think that vision and mission are some statements which should be very ornamental, philosophical, etc, etc, etc. So they draft beautiful sentence and put them on their some walls, buildings, etc, and they say these are vision and mission. But many of us hardly understand the meaning of the vision and mission that we are having, and therefore there is no question of working for the vision and the mission. So you should be having vision and mission that you are expected to work for. So when I say the vision of my institution is spread knowledge unto the last, then all my activities, all the activities which are taking place at Sangamner College, they should be eyeing at this particular statement, spreading knowledge unto the last. So I should be offering scholarships so that any student who is deprived of education should be able to take admission at my college. He should not be deprived of education just because he's not having enough money to take admission. That is spreading knowledge unto the last. I should be a choice at global level, at least at the national level, so that any student from whether from rural background or from urban background, he should select Sangamner College as a destination. Spreading knowledge unto the last. So last will include the topmost student and last will include the poorest of the student. So whether my activities reflect in that. And similarly then, the vision and mission should be in tune with something we call as graduate attributes. Now let me allow sharing another tab with you. I'll stop sharing this screen and go to another tab, and that tab is from UGC's website. Allow me some time. That will take you to this document by UGC. Can you all see a tab on Google Chrome? If somebody can nod, please.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Right. So this is from the website of UGC, and this LOCF document, Learning Outcome Based Curricular Framework. If you go through this document, this is a 20-page document for undergraduate programs of UGC. In 131, they mention something about graduate attributes. Now, this is the guideline for you to choose your program outcomes. For all the undergraduate programs, your program outcomes should be in line with these graduate attributes. And what are these? There are 12 such graduate attributes. So if you are taking notes of what I'm telling you, you can probably write down or go through this document later on. So for example, first one is disciplinary knowledge. So if you're talking about zoology, or if you're talking about science for that matter, whether the student is able to imbibe the skills associated with that discipline, science, arts, commerce, management, or whatever discipline you're talking about. Communication skill, whether you're doing engineering, whether you're doing science, whether you're doing arts, linguistic, mental and moral science, humanities, whatever. It is something which is very essential. Once you graduate or postgraduate, you should be having that essential communication skill with you. Critical thinking, problem solving, analytical reasoning, research related skills, cooperation and teamwork, scientific reasoning, reflective thinking, information and digital literacy, self-directed learning, multicultural competence, moral and ethical awareness or reasoning, leadership readiness or qualities, and lastly, lifelong learning. So there are as many as 12 graduate attributes. And therefore, like you have seen in the earlier presentation, there can be possibly 12 program outcomes. Possibly 12 program outcomes depending upon the discipline that you are talking about. Each in line with one of these graduate attributes. So you can have a program outcome in line with, say for example, disciplinary knowledge, highlight it and write down a program outcome. You can have a program outcome talking about communication skill. You can have a program outcome talking about problem solving. You can have a program outcome talking about analytical reasoning, and so on and on. Possibly 12 program outcomes. I hope by now I'm very clear. So you start with vision and mission, and then you gradually go towards the graduate attributes, and then you come down to the third step, which talks about the program outcomes. So I'll again stop sharing this tab and come back to the earlier tab. That was my PowerPoint presentation. So that will take 1 or 2 seconds. Coming back to the window, and here comes the presentation. So this rest part of it has been discussed in the earlier presentation, so I will not go much into the details. So starting from vision mission, then to the graduate attributes, then to the program outcomes, then course outcomes. But here comes the trick. Writing the program outcomes and course outcomes, the story has now started. Align this into your syllabus, into your teaching methods, into your learning activities, into your assessment tools. Map it, and then after the assessment, see whether the improvements are taking place. In the earlier presentation, Professor Manoharan was talking about, target, setting up the target. 70% of the students getting marks more than the average, 80% of the students getting marks more than the average. This is the target that you are setting. And if you're not able to meet the targets, then you are looking for the improvements. And what improvements? Go back to your program outcomes and the course outcomes and the mapping that you have done. Do you need to change the syllabus? Do you need to change the methods of evaluation? Do you need to change the assessment tools, etc., the learning activity, etc.? Go back and do the exercise again, so that the end user, which your student, is benefited. The teacher and completion of syllabus is not the end of the story. The end of the story is whether the student is able to attain the program outcomes and the learning course outcomes for that matter. Going ahead, this is what I have already discussed, so not will spend more time on discussing the vision and mission, because this is not a workshop on talking about the vision and mission. Graduate attributes, the document that is needed is LOCF by the UGC. So you all should go with this document. Now there is a challenge, right? In a college of, say, for example, 50 odd teachers, you will have 30 odd teachers who are, okay, 10 teachers who will proactively go for this exercise. There will be 20 more teachers who will say that if Principal Badgujar sir is telling them, they will go for it. But there will be 10 more teachers who will be reluctant in doing this exercise. But let me tell you very frankly, this is an exercise that every teacher has to do with same zeal. Because even if one teacher is going wrong, whole exercise will fail. Even if one teacher goes wrong, whole exercise will fail. So it is a teamwork that you have to do, my dear friends. All the teachers have to do this exercise for their respective courses and their programs. So these are the graduate attributes that I was talking about. I have already talked about this. Coming into the program outcomes now. So now you are supposed to write the program outcomes. What are the program outcomes? The narrower statements that describe what students are expected to be able to do by the time of graduation. If I have to say in Marathi, I will say, माझा विद्यार्थी ग्रॅज्युएट झाल्यानंतर काय करू शकेल हे लिहून काढणे प्रोग्राम आउटकम्स. मुझे अगर हिंदी में बोलना होगा तो मेरा विद्यार्थी ग्रेजुएट होने के बाद क्या क्या कर सकता है, बोल सकता है, लीडरशिप कर सकता है, एनालाइज कर सकता है, रीजनिंग कर सकता है, प्रॉब्लम सॉल्विंग कर सकता है. अगर वो ये सारी चीजें कर सकता है तो ये हमारे प्रोग्राम आउटकम हो सकते हैं. फॉर दैट you have to have a clear idea of your syllabus that you are drafting, syllabus that you are framing, you are designing. And therefore, unfortunately, this exercise that we do in universities, it goes without much of thought of these outcomes. हम कई बार syllabus frame करते हैं, many times we frame syllabus in universities, we frame it like, ये difficult है, we will omit it. This is easy, we will incorporate it. ये पुराना हो गया, निकाल देते हैं. ये नया आया, डाल देते हैं. But we hardly think of what outcome we are addressing. हम कौन सा outcome address कर रहे हैं, हम शायद उसके बारे में कभी बात नहीं करते. And therefore, you have to have that clear knowledge of that UGC document, the graduate attributes. Professor Manoharan sir was talking about the graduate attributes of engineering. So that you should be talking about those graduate attributes. All that framework has been given by UGC. Go through that. talk about those graduate attributes and align your program outcomes accordingly, describing the knowledge and skills and the behaviors of the students that they should imbibe when they will be progressing through your program outcome. So essentially, I would say it is like a filter. So if you be very, very specific about those outcomes, which are measurable, which are achievable, then you end up having program outcomes. What this essentially means is we are generally very vague in writing the outcomes. I will give you a few examples. We generally write very, very vague statements which will give you a limited essence of what you are going to do. That should not happen. Your outcomes should be very specific, clearly talking about what is expected. They should be achievable and they should be measurable. And the input for this is these outcomes should be based on the performance. What will be the student able to do, provided you give a certain condition and provided you have offered them a certain criteria. When I say this will become more clear to you when I give you an example. What are the performance indicators? What is the condition? What are the criteria under which the student will deliver this outcome? So these are the three important factors that you have to remember: performance, condition, and criteria. See these examples now. I've given you good, weak, and poor program outcomes now. So the exercise that you will be doing back in your colleges now, when you go back and try to write down the program outcomes, is see what is going to happen. Some of the teachers, they will write unacceptable kind of program outcomes just like this. Look at this one. Understand science. This is the most vague statement one can make. The student will be able to understand science. The first graduate attribute, right? Discipline based. So discipline based, no sir, understand science. This is highly unacceptable program outcome. The second person will probably work more on it and will write understand principles of science and their application. So it is kind of improvement on what program outcome he was writing. Somebody will work more on it and he will write, he'll be able to understand the principle of science and apply them to solve the scientific problems. So you're talking in action verbs, understand and apply to solve the scientific problems. And somebody who is much more acquainted to this whole situation will write, if given the scientific discipline, he will be able to understand the principles and apply them to solve the scientific problem. So the criteria is given, the scientific discipline. So I'm doing BSc, but I do not know whether the student is doing BSc in zoology or botany or chemistry or mathematics or electronics or in computer science or in physics. So if the student is doing it in physics, say for example, he would be able to understand the principles of the physics and apply them to solve the scientific problems, say in mechanics and blah, blah, blah. So it should apply to physics, it should apply to botany, it should apply to zoology, it should apply to chemistry. And so we call them as program outcomes. And therefore you give the conditions, you give the criteria, and of course something that we call as performance. He should be able to understand. Understanding is performance. Problem solving is performance. Applying is performance. And then you have given conditions. Scientific problems, scientific discipline, these are the conditions and the criteria. So this is how you should be going about, writing the program outcomes. And this has been explained by Professor Manoharan sir, the revised Bloom's taxonomy. And this pyramid is like this because, as he mentioned, most of the time we focus on either 2 or 3 of these levels. Remember, very easy, no? What is the name of today's speaker? Professor Manoharan and Mr. Pingle. Remember, very easy. Little more difficult to understand what they said. Little more difficult, further more difficult to apply what they said. Further more difficult to analyze after you have written your program outcomes, whether they are right or not. And even more difficult to evaluate what you have done. So it becomes more and more difficult as you climb the stair from remembering to last level of Bloom's taxonomy is create. I hope you all are understanding this. So I will not again take much more time on this, but because it is very, very important to understand this philosophy, that this Bloom's taxonomy should be reflected into your curriculum, into your evaluation, into your teaching and learning, so that all these levels at certain part of your curriculum delivery, they should be achieved. So a student should be able to recall the facts. They should be able to explain the ideas. They should be able to use the informations in the new situation. What if a situation is given? They should be able to compare. They should be able to justify their decisions, and they should be able to produce a new work, a project, a model, innovation, whatever they are having, right? And for this, another thing that comes into play is when you start writing your program outcomes or the course outcome, you will require this. These are the various levels of the Bloom's taxonomy, level 1 to 6, no? Starting from remembering to understanding to apply to analyze to evaluate and to create. But then how will you draft these outcomes? If you want to say, for example, address the first level of Bloom's taxonomy in your course outcome or the program outcome, then you should be using a particular verb of English language. If I have to tell this in Hindi or Marathi, I will tell की जर तुम्हाला ब्लूम्स टेक्सोनॉमीच्या पहिल्या लेवल बद्दल बोलायचं आहे की रिमेंबरिंग वर भर द्यायची आहे, तर तुम्ही कोणतं क्रियापद वापरणार आहात? सो द क्रियापद जे तुम्ही वापरणार त्यांचं नाव असेल नेम द प्रोग्राम्स, नेम द इन्स्ट्रुमेंट, नेम द सायंटिस्ट. हे आठवणीवर बेस्ड आहे, रिमेंबरिंग. जर तुम्हाला अंडरस्टँडिंग विचारायचं असेल, then you will probably start your question with estimate, relate, describe the process of. So when you frame a question like describe the process of, you are essentially testing the understanding level of the student. When you are asking a question, for example, modify the statement or report or produce, then probably you are testing the skill of application from the student. Similarly, when you are asking them to differentiate between a plant cell and animal cell, you are probably testing the skills of analysis of the student. When you ask the student to hypothesize or design a plan, then you are testing his skills of creation. And that is why this wheel is very, very important for you. Then in the, at the periphery, what you get are the methods. What can you do? Say, for example, you want to test his skill for evaluation, then organize a group discussion, right? Or for example, for a student from law, organize a mock court competition, court trial, right? Ask them to carry out a survey if you want to test his skill for analysis. So this chart is very, very important, that you can have to, have your evaluation methods, to draft your outcomes, and to test the abilities of the students. I'm sure that I'm rushing it a bit, but I'll try to give as much as possible in the time that has been allotted to me, so that at least when you go back to your colleges, you should be able to write down few program outcomes and the course outcomes. So now we will be drafting program outcomes. We are able to draft the program outcomes. The guideline is 12 graduate attributes given by the UGC. So you will draft one outcome possibly for all the graduate attributes. If not possible, you can omit depending upon the discipline that you belong to. So all the graduate attributes may not probably apply to your specific discipline. Now coming down to the course outcome. So there are possibly 12 program outcomes, but you should be having 4 to 6 course outcomes. 12 program outcomes, possibly less than that also, but around 4 to 6 course outcome is what you can have. And what about these course outcomes? They should be domain specific using the action verbs that we talked earlier just now in that verb wheel. I'll give you examples. Again, this should be specific, measurable, and they can be demonstrated by the students. So if you say that the analysis skill should be there in the student should be able to exhibit that skill, demonstrate that skill of analysis. And this should be aiming at higher order skills of each domain of the learning, in each domain of the learning. So you can talk about evaluation, you can talk about synthesis, you can talk about analysis of the cognitive domains. We of course do not have time to go much into the details of the cognitive so that in course outcomes you can cover up the complete paper, complete subject that you are having. So this is how you will be having 4 to 6 course outcomes. Now, how possible that they will be probably addressing 1 or 2 topics in your syllabus, so it will become too trivial, and therefore keep your course outcome number to 4 to 6 so that it covers the complete subject. Now, this is something very important, and you should be noting it down in your notebooks. Attainment of each course outcome should lead to attainment of at least one program outcome. Attainment of one course outcome should lead to attainment of at least one program outcome. So, for example, if I say the student should be able to classify the animals on the basis of their character. So classification is the action verb that I am using here, and condition I have given based on the characters. So this course outcome, the student should be able to classify the animals based on their character, should correlate with any of the 12 program outcomes that you have written down earlier. At least one of the program outcomes. This is the point that you have to keep in your mind. So course outcome, you have to have action verbs and a learning statement. In this case, the student should be able to classify. Classify is the action verb, and learning statement is on the classify the animals based on their characters. That is the learning statement. I'll give you a few more examples now. Again, the good or bad course outcome. So after this lecture of Professor Manoharan sir and Mr. Pingle, all of you went to your college and started writing down. Few of you, started writing down the course outcome, and somebody came up with course outcomes like this. This is a person of physics, which probably Professor Manoharan, who is still with us, who will appreciate this, because I could see from his CV that he's a physicist. So you would say, understanding the knowledge of basic quantum mechanics to set up one-dimensional Schrodinger wave equation and its application of few physical problems. Understand the fundamental aspects of crystallography. Understand the role of free electrons in determining the properties of metals. Understanding the basic laser physics, working of lasers, etc. Understanding the theory of free damped and forced vibration of particle, etc., etc. And on the right-hand side, you have another set of program outcomes, course outcomes. And what do they say? Now, see the difference. This talks about applying laws of physics, for example, Hooke's law, etc. Now, if any of you have had studied physics at some level in his school or in college, you would know that there are many laws, right? There is Kepler's law, there is Hooke's law of elasticity. I remember a little bit of physics, so I remember that Hooke's law is within elastic limits, stress is directly proportional to strain. But this is not the only law in physics, right? You have Newton's law, you have Kirchhoff's law in electrostatistics, so many other laws, right? So the student should be able to apply all the laws from unit 1 to unit 8, whatever they are, to compute different types of responses, stress and deformation in the given materials, right? So wherever the response of material is required, those related laws the student should be able to apply. Then in the second course outcome, the action verb is changed. In first, course outcome, you are talking about applying. In second course outcome, you are talking about analyzing skills. Analysis or analyze the structural elements for different force systems to compute design parameters BM and SF. And in third course outcome, they're talking about design compression elements using engineering principles. Further, they talk about conduct experiments, and further they talk about preparing laboratory reports. Now see, preparing laboratory reports, can somebody of you tell me to what graduate attribute or the program outcome this course outcome will align to? When you are preparing laboratory report, you are probably talking about communication, the written communication. So you can easily correlate this with the program outcome associated with that graduate attribute you are talking about the communication skill. Right? In this way, you have to ensure that you map the course outcomes with the program outcomes. So step now are vision and mission, then graduate attributes, then program outcomes, and now the course outcomes. I hope I'm clear. Though I'm rushing through, but I am trying to take it step by step. So now you have a lot in hands. You have graduate attributes, and you have, so this is what I was talking about, the statement that you are making and the action verb. Apply is the action verb here, and the statement compute different types of response. Going ahead now. So you will be drafting your COs now. Now the next step of the exercise comes. When I was talking with the principal Badgujar sir, I told him that this is probably an exercise that I normally tell people in 3 days. And why I do it in 3 days is because they will take 1 day probably to nicely draft down the course outcomes or the program outcomes. Second day, they will come up with an exercise. Another exercise that we'll be doing is mapping the POs and the COs. So once you have framed these program outcomes, now you have to map these with the course outcomes. Or in fact, I would say other way around, course outcomes to be mapped with the program outcomes. And for that, you will have a requirement of the mapping factors. On what level will you map it? In the earlier talk, Professor Manoharan sir has already explained there can be 3 levels at which you can map course outcomes with the program outcomes. What are these? So if you say that your course outcome that you have designed, like you have these course outcomes, these are the course outcome on your right hand side. Now you have to relate these with the program outcomes, the broad statements that you have made. You were talking about the scientific discipline. Given the scientific discipline, the student would be able to solve the problems associated scientific problems. This is what I wrote, the program outcome. So now you have to align these course outcome with all such 12 program outcomes at the level of 1, 2, 3. So if you feel that there is small correlation between the course outcome and the program outcome, you will take 1 as the mapping factor. If you feel that there is a reasonable correlation between the two, the course outcome and the program outcome, you will map it as 2. And you feel that this is high extent to which the course outcome is aligning with the program outcome, you will say 3, substantial, good enough, right? Or you would say that course outcome is truly in line with the program outcome. Map it as 3. And what you will get is a course matrix, something like this. Course matrix, something like this. So if some of you who are not able to follow it quickly, take a snapshot of this. And after my lecture, you can again go through this exercise. Now, say for example, there's a particular paper in commerce. I usually give the example from all the disciplines. So there's a particular paper in commerce, say for example, costing. Or there is a particular paper in politics, say for example, international relations. Or there is a particular paper in English called as prose and poetry. Or there is a particular paper in botany, say for example, morphology of flowering plants. For that particular paper, you have written some 4 to 6 course outcomes. I hope you are understanding. For that particular paper, costing or accounting or mercantile law in commerce, I'm not a commerce person. I just know the name of the papers. So for these one particular paper, you have written down 4 to 6 course outcomes, taking into account as many possible Bloom's taxonomy levels correlating to all the topics in your paper. Now you look at the 12 possible program outcomes that you have written, taking into account the graduate outcomes or graduate attributes mentioned in the LOCF document of the UGC. You probably will not have all the 12, but whatever you are having, the program outcomes, try to go with the individual course outcome now. So one course outcome and one program outcome, try to correlate them. Say, for example, the program outcome 1 was discipline specific knowledge. So read your course outcome now, whether it talks about discipline specific knowledge. If you feel that it talks about discipline specific knowledge only to a small extent, then map it as 1. If you feel that course outcome 2 talks more about discipline specific knowledge, relate course outcome 2 with program outcome 1 as 3. This is the mapping factor. So I hope I'm getting more clearer to you now. So similarly, try to map all course outcomes with all the program outcomes so that you have an average mapping of each program outcome. Sometimes it will happen that your course outcome is not mapping with a particular program outcome. You can leave it and keep a dash over there. But each course outcome should map at least with one program outcome, at least with one program outcome. The footnote over here. Each course outcome should align with at least one program outcome. And finally, you will have an average here. And that average now goes into something that we call as program matrix. This is called as course matrix, what we had. So your course outcome of one paper aligning with all the program outcomes. Now we'll have the course outcomes of a complete paper. This average you see here. This is one paper. For commerce people, for example, say costing. For botany people, say morphology of flowering plant. For English people, say, for example, prose and poetry. So one course, one paper, general paper or special paper, whatever you may call, program outcomes average is 2.3, 2, 2.3, 2, 1, 2, and so on. One particular paper. Now your whole degree program is having many such papers, paper 1, paper 2, paper 3, paper 4, paper 5, and so on. So each teacher will now give the course outcomes values, mapping factors for these program outcomes. This is, say, for example, paper which Dr. Sonawne teaches. So he has given his numbers 2.3 to 2. Right? Now there is another paper which Mr. Patil teaches, 102, for example. So he will give his numbers. Right? And this way you end up having a program matrix. What does this mean? This means that the attainment of the program outcome, that means the attainment of the BSc program outcome or attainment of the BA program outcome, it does not depend on the attainment of one particular paper. It depends upon the efforts taken by all the teachers for all their subjects, all their papers. So if you are having 2 papers of zoology, 2 papers of physics, 2 papers of botany, 2 papers of chemistry, then 8 such papers and their course mapping factors here with the program mapping. These factors will go for further calculation. So whatever number is here, it is very, very important. And then this will be multiplied by the evaluation factors to come down to the final number. Then we come down to the third exercise. So any specific question by now, if you are having any questions to address, or maybe we'll take it at last.
Can you take it at last?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Yeah, there are many questions I can see.
Yes, sir.
I'm deliberately going through the chat before I can go through the last part of this exercise.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Yeah, good. So I guess people are getting what they were expected to get, and going to the last part of this presentation. This is about course outcome attainment and program outcomes attainment. I'll go back to the slides whenever needed, because I understand giving it all in 1.5 hours is kind of, your brain will be all occupied. So I'll go back and revise whole thing before I end up my presentation. I still have some 15 more minutes with the presentation. So now we are talking about attainments, the exact end of the exercise that we want. You have program outcomes, you have course outcome. What you have done is, for one paper, you have aligned course outcomes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 with all the 12 program outcomes. Now, one teacher has done his for one paper, all the other teachers will do for the rest of the papers, so that all the subject of a particular degree program are now aligned with the program outcomes. So that matching, that mapping is very, very important, that we have done now. Now going into the level of attainments. The problem with Indian psychology is that we are not honest to our jobs, and therefore we normally set easy targets. What is easy targets? We set targets which you think we can achieve. And I always feel that we should be setting difficult targets, so that we end up reaching very, very high. I know probably I cannot go to 80%, but then setting up a target of 80%, makes me go for 80%. If I set 70% target, then I'll try for 60% or so. So always you should be setting up targets which are higher. Now, what are the attainment scales that we'll be talking about? So scale should be mutually defined by the head of the department or the program coordinator in your institution. For example, for a BSc program, you can have a program coordinator in your institution. For a BCom program, you can have one program coordinator. For a BA, you should be having one program coordinator, who would look into the results of past 3 years or past 3 results, so that he can come down to a target. What should be the target? People normally ask me this question, no? Subject level difficulty or discipline level difficulty is different. So you should be having different targets. Mathematics, probably a different target. English, probably a different target. Marathi, probably a different target, right? So the targets should not be lowered, as I said, just because you have not achieved the target. Rohit Sharma, he got double century, 200. Now his target is 264. Fantastic. Then next time 200 I got, so I'll get 201. No, you should be setting higher targets. I started betting thinking that I'll score a century, but I ended up scoring 80 runs. So next time I'll keep a target of 85. No, I should still keep a target of 100 or more. So targets should not be lowered if they are not achieved. How can these targets be? Look at this now. You can have a high target. You can rate it as 3 if, say for example, these are all examples, you can change them based on your disciplines and subjects. So say for example, if 70% of the students get more marks than the set target or average. So if you find that setting a target based on last 3 years result is difficult for you, then you can set your own target depending upon 1 or 2 results or your past experiences. Because for the first time when you're doing this exercise, you may not be having a very nice data of past years, maybe. So if you are having average marks of 3 years, you can keep that as a target, or you can otherwise set your target on the basis of the past experiences that you may have in consultation with the head of the department or the program coordinator of that particular program. So if 70% students achieve the target, or more students achieve the target, now make it more clear. Say for example, I want to take an examination of 100 marks, and the past 3-year result, the average result was say 80. So if 70% of the students, they get marks more than 80, then I will rate it as attainment level as 3. I hope you are getting it. Repeating it again. There was a 100-mark question paper. The average marks of past 3-year result out of 100 is 80. That average marks normally students get is 80. So I say that if 70% of the students get more marks than 80, or 70% or more students get marks more than 80, then I will rate the attainment level as 3. If 60% or more students get marked more than 80, then I will rate the attainment level as 2. If only 50% or more students get marks more than 80, then I will rate the attainment level as 1. So you see, there are two things that you are comparing. You are comparing the average marks also, but the number of students who are getting marks more than average, that also needs to be calculated. So these are the attainment levels. Now, one thing that the teachers from higher education institution do not do, which Professor Manoharan was trying to tell, you do not frame question papers based on the program outcomes or the course outcomes. Unfortunately, Pune University is on record. I'm telling this. Pune University is no different. No university is different. We just go to the paper setting exercise with the syllabus in our hand, and based on the past question paper, we shuffle the words here and there and come up with another question paper. There was one question paper which I saw, and it started answer the following. The board question number 1, answer the following: A, B, C, D, E. A was written taxonomy, B was systematics, and the question goes like this. So my question to you now, my dear friends, is, does this actually make clear what a student is supposed to write? Answer the following: taxonomy. What do? Do I compare it with something? Do I draw a diagram? Do I find out difference between taxonomy and systematics? Do I criticize it? What do I do with taxonomy? Am I right or wrong? So you all will agree with this. Then many a times with the question papers which we frame are vague. In Marathi, question papers are framed like Tipa Liha, Lok Prashasan. I have seen these papers. Tipa Liha, Lok Prashasan. So what do I do with Lok Prashasan? Do I criticize Lok Prashasan? Do I write down the characteristics of Lok Prashasan? Do I compare the Lok Prashasan of India or some other country? What do I do with Lok Prashasan? Tipa Liha. So whatever comes to the mind of the student, you have to give mark, and therefore all the students pass. They write anything, they write Rashke Kamar Tune Kya Kiya, and they get marks. This is how it goes. And so therefore this exercise, it becomes very, very important. Assessment map. Your questions, they should be aligned with the course outcomes that you have written down. You should highlight as to this particular question of your question paper is aligned with which course outcome of your course, what assessment method you are using. So you can have practicals, you can have assignment, you can have test 1, you can have test 2, you have an end semester examination also. So firstly, you have to write down the questions which are addressing to a particular course outcome. This is called an assessment map. Again, 3, 2, 1 is partially met, fully met, and poorly met. And that these questions, to what extent they are mapping with the course outcome, that also you have to write. So 2, 3, 2 again, and so on. So again, you may not have a question at all in your test number 1 addressing the course outcome 2, probably, because you would be probably covering it in the second test. So here you can see that course outcome 2 is addressed in the second test, not addressed in the assignment at all, but in practical examination and the end semester examination, all the course outcome have been addressed. The questions from all the course outcome, they have been asked, and to a complete extent, for example. So this exercise is never done, and I'm telling it to you bluntly, not in autonomous colleges, not in universities, nowhere. We are just framing the question papers, we are just assessing them, and we are just giving marks to the students, not even thinking as to which part of the question paper was addressing which part of the course. What are the skills that have been addressed? We do not think about it. So this is something that you need to do. And then you come down to the course outcome. Course outcome. One course outcome. Remember, I understand by this time you would be little saturated, but then we are into the last part. Going back again to make you help. This was the first course outcome, aligned with the first program outcome, and now we are trying to see whether the first outcome has been achieved or not. Remember that physics person who has written, apply the laws of physics such as Hooke's law. So we are talking about that one statement now, one statement only for one paper alone. And now we are trying to map this one statement with the marks the student has got. So for example, that course outcome which was talking about the laws of the physics, the student will be able to apply the laws of physics, for example, this and this. You have questions of 3 marks in test 1, questions of 4 marks in test 2, questions of 3 marks in assignment, questions of 8 marks in practical, and questions of 12 marks in the final examination. Right? These are the marks which the students were asked questions for that course outcome. हिंदी में बताना चाहूं तो कोर्स आउटकम 1 के लिए आपने क्वेश्चन पेपर फ्रेम किया और उसमें 3 मार्क के क्वेश्चन डाले जो कोर्स आउटकम 1 को एड्रेस करते थे. मराठी में मध्ये सांगायचं झालं तर कोर्स आउटकम 1 तुम्ही लिहिला आणि त्या संदर्भातील 3 मार्काचे प्रश्न तुम्ही पहिल्या टेस्ट मध्ये विचारले, 4 मार्काचे प्रश्न दुसऱ्या टेस्ट मध्ये, 3 मार्काचे प्रश्न असाइनमेंट मध्ये दिले, 8 मार्काचे प्रश्न प्रॅक्टिकल मध्ये विचारले, 12 मार्काचे प्रश्न फायनल एक्झाम मध्ये विचारले. कोणाशी निगडीत? फक्त एका कोर्स आउटकमचे असे 6 कोर्स आउटकम आपण लिहिले होते. वी हॅव रिटन सच 6 कोर्स आउटकम्स. And then you talk about the marks the students have scored in these questions. So for example, in those 3 marks questions, students have scored 1, 3, 2, 3, 2, 2, 1, 2, and so on. So there are 8 such students and they've got this marks. So what is the average here? The average is 1.2. Past average. Past average is 1.2. So the target that you had kept was 1.2. Remember the attainment level we were talking about. Attainment level. Target. Now, so you see that the target was 1.2 for course outcome and what you have achieved is 2. So you have achieved more than it. And you see how many students could do it? So 6 out of the 8 students can do it. You see here, target was 1.2. How many have got more than 1.2? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Less than 1.2, 1 and 2. So 6 have got more than 1.2 out of 8. That means 75% students have got more than the target. So that is rated as 3 because our attainment scale was 70% of the students should be getting more than target. So we have got 75% more than the target, 75% student getting more than target. So you rate it as 3, 1, 2, 2, 2, depending upon the marks scored by the students. Here you see again, %62.5%. So here 2, 2, 2. And here you see only 50%. So you go to the level 1 automatically. Right? So this is the performance of the students for one course outcome in all the tests that have been conducted based on the target you had set. So this is course outcome attainment for one particular paper. Now what you do is, if you give me 2 or 4 more minutes, what you do is now, these are the numbers that you have got now, 3, 1, 2, 2, 2. And the map factor is, you can see here, 3, 1, 2, 2, 2 is this number after the marks that you have got, 3, 1, 2, 2, 2. And going back to even earlier slide, CO1, you had given the mapping factor as 2, 3, 3, 3, 3. The questions align summation of this means summation of L into M. So summation of L into M will come out to be for internal assessment only. So 6 plus 3 plus 9 is equal to 15. 6, 3 plus 6 is equal to 15. And 6 plus 6 for external examination, it will become 12. Now, why do we do this for internal external examination separately? Because we want to give certain weightage to internal examination, normally say 40% or 20%. Or say 80% to the external examination. Here, what I have given for an example is 40% weightage to internal examination, 60% to the external examination. So now I multiply it with this factor. So 15 divided by the summation of M. What is this summation of M? The mapping factor, because you have given the extent to which the course outcome are mapping with the assessment method. So 2, 3, 3, 3 plus 3, 6 plus 2, 8. So 15 divided by 8 and 12 divided by 3 plus 3 is equal to 6 is equal to 2. And lastly, the percentage weightage. So I multiply it by 0.4 here and 0.6 here and add them finally to get a total of 1.95. I know it will be difficult for you to go through this calculation at the meantime, but nevertheless, you will at least understand the correlation between the test, the marks allotted in the test for a particular course outcome, and then finally internal assessment weightage and the external assessment weightage. If you want, you can have me again in your colleges also, or this is available on YouTube also. You can watch again and again to see this calculation. You will take some 2 or 3 more minutes to go through this slide to understand the whole calculation. Once you go through it carefully, you will be able to understand everything is written on this slide. Go through the YouTube video again, that is available on YouTube. So if you do it for one course outcome, say for example CO1, your value which has come out is 1.95. Here you can see 1.95. You will do it for all the course outcome of your paper, and these are arbitrary values, imaginary values. Now you had kept certain target, say for example 2 for this course outcome earlier, and what you have got with the result is 1.95. So you will say that there is a difference of 0.05, that is called as gap, and this is called as gap analysis. So you have failed to achieve the target by a factor of 0.05, and you will rate it as the gap analysis, target almost achieved. But in other cases, you will see that there is a considerable difference. Here the target is achieved completely, but the rest of the cases the target is not achieved. So what does this mean? That you have to probably revisit the assessment methods, revisit the teaching method, the learning tools, etc., so that the student can perform better and you can achieve the target of the current examination, and the gap should be reduced. So this was all about the course outcomes. And the last exercise now we'll be doing is attainment of the program outcomes. So this program outcome attainment, like Professor Manoharan sir was saying, is in 2 parts. You can see here there are direct method and there are indirect method. So this exercise that you have done here is mapping the course outcome and finding the attainment level of the course outcomes for all the course outcome of one particular paper. This will help you in getting the direct method of attainment of the program outcomes through the course outcomes. But there are certain other things which will reflect into the understanding or the skills of the student is their feedback. So you can have exit surveys when the student leaves the BSc course, BSc programs for that matter. You can take a feedback from the students, you can take the feedback from the employer, you can take the feedback from the alumni, and judge whether the program outcomes are achieved or not. So that survey, a Likert scale based survey, rating at the level of 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. 0 is poor, 5 is excellent. That Likert based survey should be taken. And then if 80% of the survey takers, they give 4 or 5 in your scale, you can rate it as 3. So say for example, you have taken feedback from 10 people, and of those 10 people, 8 people say that 4 to 5, yes, program outcome or course outcome is achieved, then you will rate it as 4 or 5. If 70% say, then you will rate it as 2. If 60% or above say, you will rate it as 1. So this is how you have to use indirect method for attainment of the program outcome. Make a program outcome feedback form or the exit form which will address all the program outcomes, and it will appear, the feedback form will appear something like this. So you can see here the PO1 was an ability to apply the knowledge of mathematics, science and engineering fundamentals to the solution of the civil engineering. These are the program outcome, right, that you might be having. But the question that you will ask in your feedback form will be, to what level you are able to apply science and engineering concepts to problem solving. See, what was your program outcome? Apply the knowledge of mathematics, engineering problems. you ask the question accordingly in the feedback program. To what level? So here you see 14 and 6, 20 students, they say that to great extent or to a larger extent. So a lot of students, they are saying that to a larger extent, they are able to. 76% is their attainment. So because we set a target of 80% here, I have given a rating of 2 here, right? So 78% 2, and 68% becomes 1. So level of program attainment on the basis of indirect method will go like this. But your questions in the feedback form should be in tune with the program outcomes that you have written down. So for example, another one here, an ability to identify and analyze civil engineering problems. The question is, to what extent you are able to analyze civil engineering problems? So a program outcome and the question accordingly goes like this. And the calculation, if you are having 80% or more who are responding as 5 and 4, you can rate down as 3. If less than that, from 70 to 80, you can rate down as 2. If 60 to 70, you can rate down as 1. This is indirect attainment. Now going to the direct attainment, this is the last chart that I'm having, and I'll stop there. So by now you have seen that for one paper, you have looked into the attainment of one course outcome that was 1.95. Going back to the earlier slide. See, this is what we had calculated, 1.95. 1.95 from this calculation. So it will be difficult for you to follow, but anyways, what I will tell you is 1.95. This is what we had calculated, right? Similarly, for all the course outcome and all the papers, I have taken only 2 papers here, for example. So you might be having 8 papers for a BSc program. So you will have to prepare such matrix, complete matrix for all the 8 papers and all 8 6 are 48 course outcomes, for example, right? And then you had these attainment values in the beginning, matrix, PO, CO matrix that you had made. And you had done a mapping of CO1 with PO1, CO1 with PO2, and so on. You had given these numbers. So now you do a calculation. And what that calculation is, you multiply A with the mapping factor. This is the attainment, 1.95. So you multiply by the mapping factor. And where is that mapping factor? This is the chart that you made in the beginning. This is mapping factor, CO1 with PO1, CO2 with PO1, CO3 with PO1, and so on. This is the chart that you have made. So that is why the complete exercise is necessary. You cannot skip any step, and there is no shortcut to this. So you multiply A, this is A, with M, this is the mapping factor, and then take the sum of it. So 1.95 into 1, 1.65 into 3, 1.9 into 3, and then add. So you will get a number. This is 31.18 in this case. And then divide it by summation of M. The sum of 3 plus 1 plus 3 plus 2 plus 1 plus 2 plus 1 plus 3 is equal to whatever. You divide and get a number 1.95. So you do this exercise for all the program outcome, 1.95 into 2, 1.65 into 3, 1.9 into 2, 2.0 into 0. Take the sum and divide it by summation of M. Summation of M will be 3 plus 2 plus 2 plus 1 and so on. So you get a number, 2.1. These are all arbitrary numbers here onwards. So here you see that the course outcomes and the program outcomes are related now. And you have seen the attainment level for each course outcome. And then you have this indirect method. From there also you have got certain number. And now on the basis of the exit survey, for example, for a particular program outcome, here you had given, say for example, PO1, the attainment level was 2. PO2 attainment level was 2. PO3 attainment level was 1. So here it comes, 2, 2, 1, 2, 2. So for all program outcomes, you have written down these values. You take feedback from alumni, you take feedback from employer, take the average of it. So now you have 2 kinds of values. You have values from direct attainment and you have values from indirect attainment. You want to give weightage to this again. So normally we will give a weightage of 60% to direct attainment and 40% to indirect attainment. So 1.95 was direct and 1.67 was indirect. Multiply 1.95 by 60% and multiply 1.67 by 40%. Add them to get a number 1.84. For all the program outcomes, you have to do this exercise. And this is that final chart which you have to upload on your institutional website to convince your NAC peer team that we do this exercise regularly. So with this, I have come down to the end of this marathon presentation where a complete exercise has been explained. At least I have tried to explain, but I'm sure at least you would be able to do 2 steps of it, writing the program outcome, course outcome, and mapping them together. Rest of the calculation, if you find any difficulty, you have my mobile number here, and of course my email ID. You can contact me, and if you want, you can also invite me to your institution. We can describe it. Thank you very much, organizers, especially Principal Barguzer sir. I have been associated with Barguzer sir from his earlier college, Dr. V.N. Naik College, where he was the principal earlier. It was nice getting associated with you again, sir. Dr. Sonavne sir, thank you very much for inviting me. If there are any questions, I would be able to answer them in 5 minutes or so. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
It's a really nice presentation, and really it is very hard to sum up in 1.5 hour. But sir, you have given the nice examples and tried to tell us about the PO, PSO, and the ECO. Uh, Sir, can we?
I'm unable to hear you, sir.
Yeah, you are not.
Sir, with us, we are having our Dean of Science and Technology Faculty, Dr. R.S. Patil, sir.
Namaste.
Thanks, sir, for your valuable guidance regarding CO, POs, and PSO. Thank you. It's my pleasure to introduce Professor R.S. Patil, sir. Professor R.S. Patil, sir, presently working as a principal of PSGP Mandal Arts, Science and Commerce College, Shahada. He has a 35 years of experience in academic and research. He is the Dean of Science and Technology Faculty of KBC North Maharashtra University, Jalgaon. He is the Chairman, Board of Studies in Physics, KBC North Maharashtra University, Jalgaon. He is also member of Inquiry Committee, KBC North Maharashtra University, Jalgaon. He has published
Yes.
his research interest in nanotechnology and nanomaterial synthesis and characterization of nanomaterials, sensor, supercapacitor. I would like to call to Professor R.S. Patil, sir, for his views as the Dean of Science Faculty, KBC North Maharashtra University, Jalgaon, and presidential talk. Professor.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Anil Patil. Good afternoon, one and all. Chairman of this national webinar, friend, philosopher, and guide, our friend, Honorable Dr. S.P. Barguzer, Principal of this ST Cooperative Science Senior College, Shahada. Guest of honor, Professor B.V. Pawar, sir, Honorable Pro Vice Chancellor of Kavaitri Bhainabai Chaudhary, North Maharashtra University, Jalgaon. Inaugurator of today's event, Honorable Professor S. Sundar Manoharam from Pandit Deen Dayal Energy University, Gandhinagar, Gujarat. And we have been listening a very nice presentation from Professor Srihari Pingle from Sanganer College. Hope you are doing well in this pandemic caused by COVID-19. Friends, at the outset, I congratulate Principal Dr. S.P. Barguzer and his team for converting the challenge of this COVID-19 into an opportunity to organize the national webinar, understanding of outcome, specific, and that will be course outcomes in this time. Dr. the Professor Anil Patil, Professor Yogesh, and all the team members. Friends, we have been listening a nice lecture from Professor Pingale, Sri Hari Pingale from Sangamner. He has explained all these things. That is the program outcomes, POs, program specific outcomes, PSOs, and that of the course outcomes, COs, in his lecture at a length. And after listening to Mr. Pingale, we should not talk on such POs and COs, but why we are going to this POs and COs? This is because of the outcome-based education, because we are following outcome-based education, and we are following again the Washington Accord. And because of this, the accreditation team, that is an act, asking about the POs and COs and all these PSOs. Now, we have to entertain different issues of higher education, and then it is because of these issues we have to talk about the OBEs, and POs and COs and all these things. And these issues are our accountability towards the students. That is fulfillment of the requirement of the curriculum. What curriculum we are giving to the students, and we should fulfillment all the requirements concerned with the curriculum. And we are fortunate at KBC NMU Jalgaon, because we have accepted the choice-based credit system from a couple of years back, and we are implementing, or we are accepting this CBCS system for the PG classes also from this year. And in the designing of the curriculum, we have insisted, all the chairmen of Board of Studies in different subjects, we have insisted that you should write at the end of this curriculum what are the course outcomes, what are the program outcomes, what are the program specific outcomes. And I am proud to say that in our university we could introduce all these POs, PSOs and COs at the end of the syllabus, so that the students should understood why we are going to learn this, and teachers should understood what should be given to the students and what should be given at the length. Second issue, as we address in the higher education, is satisfying need of the industries, because friends, our students, our graduates are unemployed. So we should see that every graduate should be employed. Either he should start his own business, or he should be employed somewhere else. And so to satisfy the needs of the industry, it is essential that we should discuss on this OBS. That is what is the outcome-based education. Again, the next issue we have to come across, there is a maintaining academic standards. And we should accredited all the programs which we are running in our institutes. For example, in science and arts colleges, we used to use accredited all the programs, but when we talk about engineering, they accredited only few programs, and all the programs are not accredited. For example, mechanical engineering is accredited by NBA, while civil engineering is not accredited, and so on and so forth. So we should have all the programs that should be accredited by the accrediting agencies such as the NAC or NBA and so forth. A second issue we come across, accountable. We should be accountable to the grant providing organizations. In our granted colleges, the grant providing organizations are Government of Maharashtra, Government of India, and then UGC, because at some point UGC also provide the grants to the 2F and 12B institutions. And so we should be responsible to those stakeholders in particular also. So we should look into the stakeholders and the problems of the stakeholders at a large also. And last, the accreditation outcome. Accreditation, every accreditation team asks you about the outcome-based education. What are the outcomes of your program? What are the outcomes of your course? And they minutely ask you about everything about the outcome-based education. So we also entertain the issues in the teaching and learning also. The issues in teaching and learning as we come across are student intakes, its qualifications and the quality, the staff, its qualification and competency, teaching processes, that is a transparent and control. Nowadays, we have shifted our offline mode of education into the online mode of education, and we can say that it is a gift of this COVID-19. It is because of we are facing the COVID-19 at a large scale in Maharashtra in general, and all over the world also. So we are moving from our offline education mode to the online education mode, and UGC take this into account, and they have published the draft regulation about this, and they have now asking that we should teach 40% of each course online and 60% offline, and they have been asking feedback from all stakeholders, and I think yesterday was the last date, that is 5th June was the last date to submit our feedback, and I have every hope that each of us might be submitted our feedback about this. Now the assessment, because we have discussed, I have discussed earlier also, in our assessment and accreditation, outcomes are expected, and we should talk about the outcome at a length. Again, the courses, our courses should be the up-to-date courses. They should be relevant to the students, relevant to the society, relevant to the needs of the society. And again, we have to entertain the issues of teaching and learning, that are the facilities. Facilities, whether they are sufficient, more than sufficient, or up-to-date facilities, they are available at the campus or in the campus. And as we know that we're talking about this OBS because of the Washington Accord, and 5 nations have signed the agreement of Washington Accord, and the nations including Germany, India, Malaysia, Russia, and Sri Lanka. These are all the members, and they have signed the document which is called as a Washington Accord. And accordingly, we are dealing with the outcome-based issues and outcome-based education issues in the syllabus. And I would like to say that whenever we are going for the choice-based credit system, because it is a choice of a student what he want to learn, and there will be no separate streams hereafter in the future, that is a arts college, science college, engineering college, or commerce college. The all facilities will be available in the campus, or if the facilities are not available in the campus, a student can go to the particular institute and he can have a credit of a particular course, and we will give the particular institute will give the credit to the student, and that could be entertained by the host university in his what we say, the certificate. So this is what is about the few things which I want to point out in this particular webinar, national webinar. Again, at this stage, I want to thank Principal Dr. S.P. Badgujar and our convener Ullas Sonone, Professor Anil Patil, and all the team members of the Senior Science College Sharda for inviting me. I also thank members of management of ST Cooperative College Sharda for inviting me for this conference. Thank you very much. Have a nice day. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, sir, for your blessings. Sir, Pingle, sir, if possible, can you take a couple of questions? If is it possible?
Yeah, I can take. Actually, I'm driving right now, but yes, I can take. Please.
Okay, just we can take a couple of questions only.
Yeah, sure.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
You are audible. 1 minute, sir. So basically, one question is that what measures concerned teacher authority should take to evaluate whether CO, PO, PSO have achieved? I think you have already answered it.
Yeah, but if somebody
And
wants more,
is there any standard method?
Yeah. Standard method for
Yes,
what?
sir. Then next, they have asked that is there any standard method, especially at UG colleges?
Standard method for what, that has not been mentioned, but nevertheless, yes, what measures should be taken is, as I said, everything that has been told in the talk, that is necessary. One is mapping of the course outcome and program outcome is very important. And secondly, if you have those course outcomes and program outcomes defined, then incorporating this into your evaluation method is very important. We are into a practice of just giving marks, taking some kind of examination. But your examinations, the question
questions that you are asking, they should be addressing the course outcomes that you have framed. Each and every course outcome that you have. If you do that, then your exercise will be successful.
One more question is that, is it necessary that CO should be restricted to one line?
No, it is not that. It is not that. One sentence you can say, not one line. It can be a one sentence, maybe a compound sentence, but not definitely one line. It should be doing justice in terms of two things. One I said was it should be having action work, number one. And number two, it should be having a learning statement. Now, this learning statement can be a combination of two or three things because you are trying to cover all lessons of your course in 4 or 6 outcomes only. So if you happen to write in one sentence only, then probably you will need more course outcome. Therefore, you can have a combined statement.
Okay, sir. And one last question is that how we can calculate all these calculations for students more than 5,000?
Yes, very good question. Very good question. If you have seen the presentation that I made, everything I do in my college is through Excel sheets. And all those figures which are coming up are through formulas which we have put in the Excel sheet. Now, here the role of the IPSC coordinator or somebody who understands program outcome and these calculations, it comes into play. If I understand this calculation, I should design this Excel sheet probably with the help of somebody from computer science department, and I should not trouble my teachers because they do not understand everything in this. So I should give a ready-made Excel sheet to all my teachers and just ask them to put the figures over there. For example, the marks of the student in test 1. He need not do all summations, etc. The summations should automatically come into the Excel sheet. The mapping factor only he should put, and the marks only the teacher should put. And the rest of those attainment value, etc. will automatically come. So teachers should not worry about these big calculations, how would they happen. IQAC personnel or somebody from the computer science department should feed these formula in the Excel sheet and make it easier for the teachers.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Thank you, sir.
Hello. Am I audible? Hello.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I'm Virendra Kumar Thakkar from Uttarakhand, Vivekananda Institute of Engineering and Technology. I am assistant professor in computer science and engineering. सर आपका सेशन बहुत ही अच्छा हुआ है, लाइक इट वेरी मच, बहुत ही सिस्टमेटिक तरीके से आपने सब चीजें समझाई. आई वुड जस्ट लाइक टू ऐड टू दिस कि कई बार ये होता है कि टीचर्स समटाइम्स और द इवन द एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन और मैनेजमेंट डज इट टू शो ऑफ समथिंग. सो इंस्टेड ऑफ शोइंग ऑफ कि हमारी कॉलेज का इंस्पेक्शन होने वाला है, कुछ लोग आने वाले हैं, उनको दिखाने के लिए हम कुछ कर रहे हैं, इंस्टेड ऑफ दैट इफ दे से इनकलकेट इन देयर रूटीन हैबिट्स, दैट मीन्स एक जैसे कोर्स फाइल बनाना है, ऐसा नहीं है कि टीचर्स पढ़ाते नहीं है, वो सब कुछ करते हैं. कोर्स फाइल होती है, क्लास टेस्ट के पेपर्स होते हैं, असाइनमेंट्स होते हैं, एंड सेमेस्टर एग्जाम होता है, स्टूडेंट लिस्ट होती है, लेकिन उसको एक जैसे एनबीए एक्रेडिटेशन भी हमने किया था, तो उसको एक जगह पर यदि रखते हैं तो उनके एक वर्किंग हैबिट में ये चीजें आ जानी चाहिए, और वो यदि आ जाती है तो ये जो सीओ सीईओ वगैरह ये सब चीजें बर्डन नहीं लगेंगे एंड दे वुड रादर एंजॉय. ये उनके काम करने का तरीका जो है, उनका जो ढंग है काम करने का, वो धीरे धीरे इससे बदलता है एंड दे वुड फाइंड इट इज वेरी यूजफुल. एक बार यदि वो कोर्स फाइल बनाना सीख जाए सपोज टीचर, तो सपोज कोई सबमिशन की डेडलाइन है, दे हैव टू सबमिट सम रिपोर्ट टू एचओडी और से प्रिंसिपल और डायरेक्टर, ये बहुत आसान हो जाता है. सो रादर देन टेक दिस एज ए ऑब्जेक्ट बेस्ड एजुकेशन और ये इवन क्वेश्चन पेपर सेटिंग, तो ये सब चीजों को एक बार एक अपनी हैबिट में शामिल करके समझदारी से यदि टीचर्स उसको फॉलो करे, तो आई थिंक इट बिकम्स अ वेरी एंजॉयबल एक्टिविटी एंड इट विल नॉट बी ट्रीटेड एज अ बर्डन बाय देम. थैंक यू सर.
Thank you, sir. Then I would like to call upon our computer department teacher, Sonali Patil madam, for the vote of thanks.
Thank you, sir. Before starting the vote of thanks, I would like to request all participants that please fill the feedback form. We already shared the feedback form link in Google Chat, YouTube Chat, and Telegram group. Once you fill the feedback form, you will get the e-certificate on your email. If someone fill the feedback form and not receive the certificate, kindly wait for the 5 days. Now, the most important part of the program is vote of thanks. On the behalf of ST Corp Education Society, Science Senior College Shahada, I take this opportunity to propose the vote of thanks to those who have directly and indirectly contributed to this webinar that is organized by our college. On behalf of our college, I extend my thanks to our Honorable Chief Guest, Dr. S. Sundar Manoharan, to take out the time from his busy schedule to grace the event. Thank you, sir, for your very thought-provoking and interesting address. A special thanks to Dr. B.V. Pawar, sir, for providing the support and guidance to make this webinar successful. Thank you, sir, for inspiring and encouraging us on this special day. I extend my gratitude to Mr. Abhijit Dada Patil for accepting the webinar invitation and supporting us. Thank you, sir. I would like to mention the one thing that due to some important tasks, Dr. B.V. Pawar, sir, and Mr. Abhijit Dada Patil is not able to join our webinar. But thank you, sir. I would like to thank our webinar resource person, Mr. Pingle Srihari sir, for enlightening us with their knowledge. Today's session was full of knowledge and interesting. It gave deep insight into the topic and also revealed some interesting fact. I am pretty sure that the precious knowledge that Mr. Pingle Srihari sir gave us will definitely help us in our future. And a special thanks to Dr. R.S. Patil, sir, for their constant support and coordination. Thank you, sir, for sharing your thought with us. Our heartfelt thanks to all participants of this webinar for their active participation. With these warm words and a kind message, we move to the end of this webinar. Thank you, all of you, once again. And now I declare this webinar is over. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, all of you, sir. Thank you, Pingle, very much.
Thank you,
Patil, sir, very much. Thank you. Principal Patil, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It is a request to all participants. Can you please on your cameras for a while?